Hi, it's me again. Today I wanted to talk about the novel that I've been working on for the past year or so. So, for context, this is the first ever novel that I've written all the way through. I normally write science fiction and fantasy, and they tend to be the kinds of things that I like to read. So, epic, multiple POVs, very Brandon Sanderson-esque, complex plots with a lot of moving pieces and many characters. Every time I'd started writing a novel before this point, it would always get left by the wayside because I just didn't have the writing chops to finish a project like that. There were just so many moving pieces and so many characters to deal with. I wanted to make it easy on myself and just write a story that's relatively simple, that doesn't have too many characters, something that I would personally care about, which is why I decided to write my esports romance novel. I wrote a story about a girl who accidentally gets recruited to a professional esports team and then falls for the team captain who thinks she's a complete idiot. Even though I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, I do really enjoy a good romantasy on the side. I wanted to try and use some of the tropes that I enjoy in romantasy, but flip. I love the enemies to lovers dynamic in novels and how that tension and chemistry builds up to something explosive. In this particular project, she really wants to be on this pro team that she got accidentally recruited to, but the team captain obviously doesn't want her to be there. He thinks it's a bad idea for plot reasons. I won't spoil too much of that, but he thinks it's a bad idea for her to be on the team, and they're just constantly butting heads, and that part was very fun to write. Another trope that I see a lot in romantasy is the bad boy love interest who's really nice to the main character but a complete jerk to everybody else. And I wanted to flip this trope on its head. The main love interest, the team captain, is extremely nice and gets along with everybody else except our main character heroine. Seeing that play out was very fun. I'm currently on draft 2 of this novel, and there are a few scenes near the climax that I need to rewrite a little bit. I've recently been thinking about why certain tropes and stories really stick with you and some don't. I'm sure there are many reasons for this. I've realized that there is a personal element to the stories that you write that always comes through to the reader. This might seem obvious to a lot of people, and I'm sure it is, but it didn't quite sink in for me that the reason the epic fantasies that I'd been trying to write this entire time didn't quite work out was because the themes that I was trying to write about weren't really meaningful to me in the slightest. I just wanted to write the cool action sequences or just write fun magic systems, and the heart of the story didn't really speak to me in the way that it should. This is one of the reasons I was so surprised by how this book turned out. It was meant to be a simple rom-com that I could write without really thinking about it. So the prevailing advice about writing is that you should expect your first a few novels at least to be not that great, and you need to just keep writing. With that in mind, I expected this novel to almost be a bit of a throwaway story, something that I wouldn't care about particularly, just something simple that that's almost very tropey, has very predictable plot lines, and is just fun to read and fun to write. I was genuinely surprised by how much of yourself naturally goes into a story and makes it personal. As I wrote, I realized that the things I ended up talking about were things that I actually care about. My protagonist avoids the spotlight and doesn't really like putting herself out there, resists change, but simultaneously is quite ambitious and wants to improve herself. Wait, so I've been yapping about this book and haven't really told you what it's about yet. The story is about my main protagonist, Cameron, who is 18 years old. She's just finished high school and she's currently working at an ice cream shop. Now, she is the middle child in a family of high achievers and feels like a bit of a failure compared to the others, even though realistically she isn't. but she's just got that sense of whatever she does is simply not going to measure up to her siblings, and she's just not enough. All her friends are heading off to college while she doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, and she's stuck working this dead-end ice cream shop. The only thing that she feels like she's ever been good at is the game that she plays obsessively called League of Champions. This is basically League of Legends. If you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for copyright reasons, I won't run to League of Champions. Riot Games, please don't sue me. And here's the thing, she's actually really good at League of Champions, like one of the best players in the region good. But she doesn't really compete, she doesn't put herself out there, she doesn't stream, she doesn't really trust herself to be good enough that people would want to pay attention to her. She's just spent years hiding rather than risking rejection. But here's the thing, people are paying attention to her climb up the leaderboards. She gets an invitation from the manager of this professional League of Champions team recruiting her. And this is like the chance of a lifetime for her, right? She didn't know what she wanted to do with her life before this point, and League of Champions is the only thing she's ever felt like she was good at. So this offer essentially just falls into her lap. But she knows that there are so few women in esports, and it's a very unwelcoming culture in many ways. Even though she feels like her skills are good enough to compete with everybody else, she's afraid that this esports team wouldn't want to take the risk by signing her. For reasons I won't get into right now, they've had a bunch of publicity scandals and they really don't want to risk anything else. So when the manager reaches out to her via text, he assumes that she's a guy because that's the majority of players on this game, so statistically that's a pretty good guess. Instead of correcting him, she lies to sneak her way onto the team essentially, and then she has to deal with the fallout, whether or not the team will accept her, unique challenges she's going to face, and whether or not she's going to be able to compete with the rest of the pros. As you can imagine, this immediately creates a lot of problems. But do you want to hear about the love interest? I'll tell you about the love interest. So Jacob, the team captain, is the opposite of Cam in almost every way. He's very ambitious and driven and confident. He's basically a natural born leader and he takes his position as team captain quite seriously. In his mind, the team stands above everything else, and he's worried that Cam is going to risk that. Not only because she lied to get on the team, and he doesn't trust her because of it, but also because she's an untested newbie who basically got recruited mid-season, so she doesn't have as much practice as the other players, she doesn't really have the experience. He's got good reasons for being concerned about her. He thinks she doesn't belong there, and honestly, he's right. Unfortunately for both of them, they end up falling for each other, which complicates matters even more. I think the interesting thing about this book isn't whether Cam's going to make it on the team and whether she's going to be a good professional player or not, although that is a very fun plotline that I enjoyed writing very much. It's more about why she felt the need to hide in the first place and how she'll overcome that. She believed that if she tries her hardest and fails, then it's just proof that all her worst fears are true. Because if you don't really try, you can always delude yourself into thinking that, oh, if you did try, you would have succeeded. It's a very comforting lie to tell yourself, and I'm sure we've all done this at some point. The entire story is about Cam being forced out of her comfort zone and into situations where she can't help but take risks she was previously afraid to take. She has to be in the spotlight, she has to be visible, she has to really try to compete with the best players in the scene. She has to fail publicly, she has to deal with people judging her, and she has to come to terms with the fact that her value doesn't disappear just because she isn't the most competent person in the room. I think a lot of people can relate to this feeling, which is why I found myself so connected to this story too. I'm sure everyone knows the feeling of watching everybody around you move forward while you feel like you're standing still, like you feel like you're stuck, or the fear that you'll find out that you're not as talented as you'd hoped. I'm sure people who pursue any kind of creative thing, and writers in particular, have felt this at various times. We'll spend years planning novels or outlining or starting drafts that we never finish, and we're just afraid to show our work to anybody else. Another aspect of the story that I found interesting and wanted to explore is the lack of women in esports. I've been playing video games my entire life. It's been one of the hobbies I care most about. Even though in 2026, women make up a huge portion of the video game audience, there isn't much representation in the highest levels of performance. I can't give you a definitive answer to why that is, and while I try and explore the various reasons this might be the case, I'm not setting out to really provide a concrete answer. I hope it changes one day. For now, I think that's an interesting thing to think about and talk about. Is it just the culture that's unwelcoming? I'm sure that is the case to some degree. I think the fact that many women didn't grow up playing games either is a big part of it. Games aren't really marketed to women in the same way that they are to men, especially competitive ones. Either way, I don't think there's a single simple answer to this. Instead of trying to be very ham-fisted with it and give a clear answer to why that might be, I thought it would be more interesting to explore the challenges a woman might face if put in this situation. If there's one thing I'd like people to take away from my story, is that you don't have to be entirely sure of yourself before you put yourself out there and act. That's basically what this entire YouTube channel is. You don't need to know that you're going to succeed before you try something. Sometimes you just have to do the thing while you're afraid to do it. You just have to ignore the feeling and do it anyway, because avoiding risk doesn't protect you. It basically just guarantees that you stay stuck and nothing changes. Anyway, that is what my book is about. I've had a lot of fun drafting it. I'm currently on the second draft, as I said. I hope to finish working on it within a month or two, but we'll see. The editing process has taken significantly longer than I thought it would. I definitely underestimated how long that would take me. What project are you working on right now? I'd love to hear about it. I'm very interested to know, is there a particular theme or idea that keeps popping up in your writing that you didn't necessarily consciously try to implement, but it just keeps showing up? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.